What's up, guys? So I haven't made a video in a while. I thought since I was off for this, whatever you want to call it, going on out there, COVID thing, I been doing a little bit of work here on the machine. So I finally got my wheel spacers, which I've got to say so far are, I mean, these things are nice pieces. I bought them through RB3 Off-Road. Kuda Tim online on some of the Facebook Honda pages told me about them. And boy, I'll tell you, these things are some nice pieces. They're well packaged. Most of the time when you buy stuff like this, it's, let me see here if I can get this open one-handed here, guys. Let me set this guy down here for a minute. Sorry. Someday I'll get it together. But, anyhow, nice looking pieces. So I'm not going to bore you to death with these. You can do your research online. I think they're on sale for like 120 bucks right now. But what I can tell you is, from being a machinist in a previous life, or earlier in my life, is exceptional chamfering, no sharp edges. Even on the part that is irrelevant back here, there is nothing. So kudos to them guys for some phenomenal machine work. I like attention to detail like that. So if you can tell from my other videos. I won't bore you to death on this. Everything's pre-packaged. If you ever bought wheel spacers before, you know most of the time they just stack them together and screw them together and they're all dinged up. I've run wheel spacers on numerous vehicles, and I can tell you this is probably the best set, aside than a $400 set of steel ones that I had built for a dually. Yeah, I mean, pretty impressed so far. I'll tell you what I do with these. A lot of guys just slap them on there, and they wonder why they come loose or they have problems with them. I will take all these surfaces that are machined from the factory, and you can see the corrosion and such, and I will wire wheel this all clean. I'll make sure there are no burrs, no sharp edges, no little dings from the factory anywhere here. Anything that can raise, can take that and just move it just a little bit, will affect the run out and the ride quality, and possibly the torque. It can cause it to loosen up. So a lot of stuff with spacers, wheel spacers, is self-inflicted, just from years of use with them. I also Loctite them on, personal preference. I don't take my wheels and tires off all the time, so I'm not afraid to Loctite the wheel spacers on. If I had to, the only reason why I'd have to take it off is I believe to change one of the axle shafts. So not a big deal. I also will take and clean the back side of the wheel up. Okay, there's some ridges here. I can feel where the factory face mounted, and you can see it's all discolored, a little rusty. I'll clean this up so it's all very nice. I'm not gonna get carried away and cause a divot in the aluminum. You can get a little harder on the steel hub, but you gotta be careful on the aluminum wheels. You can do some damage to the surface if you get carried away. But I'm gonna clean these up so they're super clean. And much like your cars, I torque them in a cross pattern. And I don't know what the torque procedures are as far as how much they torque them to, but I'll keep you updated and show you one installed. So we got the back of the wheel all cleaned up. Got the wheel on here and the spacer. So what I'm going to do here in a minute is I'm going to get out my indicator, and I'm curious to know what kind of run out these things have. And not that it really matters, because I'm running Blackwaters, and if anybody runs them things, they're not very well balanced anyways, so no big deal. But I'm just curious of how much the factory run out is in the hub, and then how much, if any, that these things these add speaking to the machining, you know, there's no, most time when you get a cheaper set of wheel spacers, the feed lines will be real rough. Like I said, all the chamfers and everything will be super sharp, because what's going on is they're in a production shop and they're just jamming them out as quickly as they possibly can. So quality is lacking there. Not that feed lines make a difference in the overall quality, but when somebody's willing to slow a machine down and give a nice micro surface here, you know, means they take quality. Plus, they're made in the USA, and if anybody knows what's going on out there right now, it is, and always has been, a great time to shop in the United States. And anytime I can do that, I do so. I know it's going on a Chinese-built machine. Unfortunately, I'm just not a huge fan of Polaris's, so I can't do it. You know, otherwise I would probably have a Polaris, because I generally try and shop American. I try my best to. It's very hard. If anybody's tried that, it's very hard. Even the American-made stuff is, I should say American-built. Chevys, Fords, Chryslers, all that stuff is generally 20 to 25% of them have Taiwan parts on them, or Japanese, or India, someplace outside the United States. So, but I did a little muffler mod. You won't be able to tell. Just to let you guys know, I just did a little while ago. I'm interested to run around before I really make any comments on it. Take these 3 bolts off. This end piece right here comes off, and inside there's a little screen. This is your spark arrestor. Basically caps over the end. What you don't know is that if you leave this piece, which is just an end cap, off, it sounds a lot louder. It's got a lot more bark to it. Almost sounds like these aftermarket exhausts that people are paying $600 for sound, because they don't do anything for performance. I don't care what they say. Maybe throttle response, maybe, but putting a muffler on is not gaining you any performance at the wheels. So I want it to be just a little bit more. I don't want crazy. This pipe actually goes back into the muffler probably to about right there. And this is just a chamber on the end. The actual muffler and everything is here, and there's a hole and a baffle down here. Well, by taking and extending that in past the end of the muffler, the sound waves bounce off the end of this before they come out the exhaust. So it quiets it down substantially, okay? So what I did was I took this pipe, remember, it goes in here probably a solid 1.5 inches. So what I did was I started cutting some off of it until I got a little more bark that I like. I ended up taking off about 1.25 inches, and I haven't ridden it yet, just kind of hit it here so it doesn't really sound much different at idle, a little bit deeper. I don't want something that's obnoxious. I just want a little more grunt. This is solely for me, but it'll be interesting to see how it sounds when I get it out and ride it. And what I'd really like to do, and I think somebody could easily cut this open to a larger exhaust. I haven't measured this. I would imagine it's 1.5 inches, 1.7 1.75 or something. You could probably put cut this out with a hole saw and go to like a 2.5 and weld it on the outside. And I'll bet you it would sound just like some of these aftermarket exhausts. I mean, really close. And you can put which I will do, put the spark arrestor back in once I'm done messing around with it. I'll just put it back in here and tack weld it on the inside, and it'll work as it was designed to. And I gotta see, I might have some stainless around here to build one of these real quick, and just try it out, you know, see what it sounds like. So anyways, for you do-it-yourselfers at home that don't like to spend $500–600 for sound, this is another alternative, you know, because none of them exhausts that they put on there. Maybe the full header system all the way back to the motor, so it'd be a full head pipe and exhaust, but you would have to have a tuner to take advantage. So you would have to have a Power Vision or some means to put fuel in it in certain areas to gain. My guess would be that you would pick up mid-range peak somewhere along the line, because it looks like they've already, I don't see, you know, they got the 2-in-1 collector, which is, I don't know, this thing's built for torque, you know, like as much low-end torque as they can get, and it runs good up top, but I could see them picking up, you know, maybe 3–4 horsepower, but you're talking $1,000 for a, you know, the seat of the pants is going to feel better because you hear it more. I'll probably think it's better when I hear this exhaust more. Oh man, it feels a lot better. But in all reality, if you were to really put this on a wheel dyno, an actual at the rear tires, because the crank really doesn't matter. I don't care if you put 10 horsepower in the crank. 10 horsepower at the crank is probably gonna be maybe 3–4 horsepower at the wheel. You know, maybe 4. I don't, you know, there's just a lot of parasitic loss there. And so, you know, are you going to feel that in the seat of your pants? Maybe. You know, me, I lost a ton of performance going to 32s, and I wish somebody would buy them. So I would, because I'd like to go to 30s. I think 32s are too much for this machine, for what I do. I think if you just trail ride and drive through mud and want to zing the tires in like 1 or 2 gears, but I think if like around us we do a bunch of so varying. One time you can be mudding on the same trail, you can be going through mud up to the, you know, to your seat, and then, you know, the next mile it's sandy, takes a lot of power, you know, kind of higher speed stuff, and that's really where you notice the 32 and the power losses when you get up in the higher gears. You can really tell that you have the bigger tires on there. In the like real sandy, loamy stuff, at least we can around here. I noticed it. I swapped out some stock ones this last weekend and just put them back on, and it's definitely a lot peppier with the stock machines on, stock tires on. And I don't know if that's because of the tire spin and it's just zinging the tires and it makes it feel like it is, but it's definitely in the higher gears 100%. We're not supposed to be traveling real far. Fortunately, I had an accident in the family, my parents, and I had to go up north. And I took my machine with me. I was unable to ride a lot because I was taking care of my father. But, you know, I put in a couple hours, and I had, like, downtime in between, you know, moving him around and stuff after I picked him up from the hospital. So I rode it with these tires on a section of their property, which is sandy, kind of whooped out a little bit. And then I swapped out the tires, and the next day I rode it, you know, a little bit on the same trails, and it's quite a big difference, you know. So, but, all right, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to change the oil in the old girl. And what else am I going to do to this thing? Oh, I am cutting the cage down, guys. I've got, I borrowed a tube bender from my buddy. So, you know, oh, sorry guys, bought a tube bender from my buddy, Rogue Fab. I've never used one before, and I've got some DOM 1.75 120 wall, a little heavier than what I want, but as you can see, I've got quite a bit of it. I could build a whole new cage. I'm not going to though. Pretty good detailed write-up from a guy on one of the Honda Facebook pages. I can't remember which one it was. about cutting them down. I am going to add a ton of gussets to it because I do believe it weakens it when you re-weld it and cut it. I am going to drop it about 4 inches in the back here. All right, I'm going to take 4 inches out of this. And then I may have to heat some stuff up and bend it. And then I'm going to add a cross dash bar across the dash. And I may do intrusions. I don't know. I don't like the visibility. I'm definitely doing an X bar in the back here. And I'm going to move, I may move, oop, you guys can't see that. I may move that bar back to the dead. I think I videoed this before because this is like a dead node here. I would rather have that crossbar back there, and then I'll do some stuff in the roof. It may not be disconnectable after I'm done, because if I put these crossbars, kind of like an intrusion bar from, you can see the harness bar that comes back here and it just goes down and follows it. I'm going to come off of that and go up, and come off of that and go up, just to make it safer. You know, I know this is stock, and you're like, well, I put all the time into a stock cage. Well, it's just like anything. If it's built right, it's going to save. I've seen stuff made out of poop pipes been rolled numerous times, and because it was designed and built well, it was absolutely okay. You know, you can take the best material in the world and build a poorly designed cage, and it's gonna fold up. Some of these cages, and I'm not saying names, some of these cages I see on these UTVs, you know, they got the sidebars, they go up and then they roll in. You know, that's not strength. You know, you don't put a corner on a roll cage and tie it in like that. You know, it's no different than the factory doing something like that. You know, yeah, it's going to work a little bit, but that's a weak point. It's a bend where it can break off. You want to keep everything triangulated if you can. And I'm no pro at it. I'm not going to tell you I know it all, but you know, some of these cages, just to make them look good, they suffer. You know, they're probably stronger than stock 100%. You know, the stock is not a roll cage. It's a roller protection. People use cage on these things, and they're not a cage. They're just they're pretty thin walled, and but with some bracing, should be fine. And what I always have to laugh about is these guys swear up and down on these aftermarket cages, and they're very strong. The problem is they bolt them to the same material, you know, the thin wall stuff. They bolt them to the thin wall stuff at the base. So you got a strong cage up top bolted to thin wall stuff. And I can't tell you the amount of times I've seen these things all bent up. Now the cage doesn't cave in, but I've seen them shear and the whole cage move back close to the driver. You know, how scary is that? So that's just a thought. The only way to truly make these things really stout is when you do an EXO or an aftermarket cage, is to have more tie-in spots to disperse the load, right? You know, so the whole idea of a rollover, you know, a roll cage is so it disperses the load to the rest of the frame. So if you can make more contact points with different parts of the frame, makes it much more rigid. So anyways, that's my thoughts. So I'm gonna putter along with that, kind of get this stuff done. I'm gonna change the oil in this thing, and take it out for a ride and want to hear the exhaust and stuff. And I got a couple other little mods that I bought because I'm bored at home, much like a lot of people. So we better go back to work soon because I've been buying stuff for everything. So I'm so bored. But all right, we'll talk to you guys later. Well, here we go. They say just get to it, so we're starting to hack her up, guys. And a lot of the cage builders are gonna freak out. Oh, it's thin wall, you're weakening it. And I'm gonna gusset it. I'm gonna put inserts in here and into here and plug weld all around it, so it'll be strong as it was factory. I'll probably build some real gussets in here, and I'm gonna reuse this, but I'm gonna gusset up here with a 90 in that corner. I'm not going to do an intrusion bar because I'd have to hack my window up, and I don't want to do that because I actually like having a window, especially this time of year. So I took about 3 1/4 out of the back here, and I cut it right in the center of this bar. So we'll see how that ends up. I'll end up probably having to heat this area here and bend this up a little bit. But we may be able to remake the back part, gusset it, and I'll show you guys what I got going on. So it's going to be a lot stronger than the factory. It's still not going to be a true roll cage where you could roll it multiple times and it'll have no dents in it or it won't be tweaked. But you know, I'm not too worried about it. I'm gonna put some gussets in. It'll be a lot stronger than factory, 100%. And then maybe at a later date I'll build a full cage for it. But this is for cosmetics. I hate the way that the roof line looks on these things. So I'll keep you updated here and as we move along.